Okay, it is 6 o'clock, and we will call our regular board meeting of May 23rd to open. And we will begin with Pledge of Allegiance. So join me saying I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will seek an adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Borkman.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, for adoption of the minutes, 1.4 through 1.10, we were given confirmation from KASB that we can actually approve all our minutes in one motion. So I'm going to seek a motion, unless anyone wants to pull out any of these motions separately, to approve them in one motion from 1.4 to 1.10.
So moved. Owsley.
Okay, do I have a second?
Goodburn, second.
All right, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That was fun. All right, let's begin with 2.1, our superintendent's report under communication items. Dr. Hubbard.
Yes, thank you. So we're proud to be wrapping up our first year of Read Across SMSD. This initiative was hosted in partnership with NEA Shawnee Mission, and we're so proud of how it promoted reading in our schools and in our community. It also honored the district belief that a community's strength is derived from its diversity. In the month of May, Tyler Clubb, Director of Facilities, joined fourth grade teacher Sarah Harvey, students Ben Rivas and Annie Bowen from Westwood View, as well as partners from Newkirk Novak and our operations and maintenance team to help us explore the theme, Build Together. This theme helped us all think about how it takes many people working together to help make dreams come true. We'll include a link in the video, to the video in the recap so that you can see all of the Read Across SMSD on that webpage in case anyone's looking for summer titles for reading. The Shawnee Mission East Boys tennis team earned its third consecutive Kansas State Activities Association championship. We also have some individual titles to highlight. Gregor Wiedemann, sophomore, who was state champion in singles. Graham Ferris Jr., who earned third place in singles. In doubles, Henry Blair and Jordan Jenkins, seniors, placed 7th. Jake Hansen, freshman, and George Call, sophomores, placed 10th. And we congratulate these athletes and Coach Andy Gibbs. Aaron Stout, kindergarten teacher at Rising Star Elementary, was honored with the College Football Playoffs Extra Yard for Teachers recognition. Stout received 2 complimentary tickets to a K-State football game. There she will be recognized as an SMSD representative as teachers from across the state are recognized. She also had the opportunity to win $500 for a classroom project. In addition to this honor, Stout was recognized as the Rising Star Elementary Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to Erin. Free meals will be available for all children ages 1 through 18 at Summer Lunch Bunch starting June 6th in the Shawnee Mission School District. All children will be able to eat inside the cafeteria or take a meal to go. On Fridays, children will also be able to receive a take-home bag with food items for weekend lunches and breakfast food for 7 days. We will include a link in the recap with more details about time, dates, and locations. SMSD educators had a great time at this year's SMSD Staff and Family Fun and 5K event. This celebration of our SMSD team members drew hundreds of staff and family members. After the run in the Shawnee Mission South neighborhood, families were also able to enjoy well-being booths, a magician, lawn games, face painting, and giveaways. We thank Tammy McCoy, Wellness Coordinator, and our SMSD Wellness and Human Resources team, the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation, and all of our event sponsors who helped make this great day possible. It's always a wonderful way to wrap up the year as we celebrate nearly 2,000 graduates walking across the stage. We were thrilled to honor those who completed their time in Project Search and post-high transition programs, Arrowhead Day School, and all of Shawnee Mission High Schools. This was an outstanding class, and it was so exciting to get to honor them for all of their accomplishments during their time in Shawnee Mission. We also officially held the last day of school for students in pre-K through 11th grade. I congratulate all the students for what they learned and for how they grew during the 21-22 school year. I also want to thank our educators for an amazing year. It had many unexpected turns, but by sticking together, we all made it through successfully. We wish everyone nothing but the best as we begin summer, and we look forward to 22-23. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hubbard. All right, moving on to board reports. We'll begin with SMAC PTA, Ms. Hembury.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to update folks that the SMAC PTA every year holds a School of Instruction. It's a training opportunity for leaders of PTAs throughout the district, and that is coming back to being in person on Wednesday, August 3rd in the evening from 5:30 to 8:30 at Shawnee Mission West. I was also going to note that the clothing exchange is closed over the summer because there are renovations happening at the Early Childhood Center where that is located. It's closed for the summer to reopen probably in August, but still the exact date to be determined. And then lastly, there are a number of leadership positions that are open with the SMAC PTA, Secretary, Vice President of Public Relations, and Member at Large. So if anyone out there is looking to get more involved, it's a perfect chance.
Thank you. And let's continue with the update, any updates on the Shawnee Mission
Yes.
Education Foundation.
Sure.
Thank you.
The team at Shawnee Mission Education Foundation wanted me to note that on June 6th, we will be beginning our Leadership Shawnee Mission class. This is 28 incoming juniors and seniors from all 5 of our high schools. This is actually the largest class we've ever had. They'll be participating in 2 weeks of really focused leadership development at the Tucker Leadership Lab at William Jewell College, and then paired with mentors in their field of interest. So things are coming back.
Great, thank you. Mr. Stratton, updates for the KASB Board of Directors.
Yes, thanks. The Board of Directors meets again in June 11th. It's a 2 days worth of meetings. Some of it's for recognition of staff around the state, others to conduct the work of the organization. The staff at KASB has begun the strategic planning process with Brian Jordan as the new executive director in his first 6 months or so, and so that will play out over the summer and into next year.
Great, thank you. Ms. Goodburn, any updates on Policy Review Committee?
We don't meet again until August. I believe the date's August 1st.
Okay, and then I believe that's, any other updates? I believe that's good. Okay. All right, 2.3, Board Financial Report. Dr. Hubbard.
So yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Russell Knapp to do the board financial report, and we paired 3.01 budget workshop right behind him, so he will just start with our budget report and then move into the financial budget workshop.
Great, so next step on our budget workshop process. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening. So first, we want to go over 2.03, the board financial report. So that is the May financial reports as of April, and also an update on ESSER 2. In addition, we attached a projection for the current year. We typically do this at this time. We have 2 months remaining in our fiscal year as it ends June 30th. As you can see up on the screen, we originally budgeted a deficit of $528,000. That was the budget that we approved back in August of 2021. And if you recall, it was a small surplus, but we had to go deficit because of the outstanding February natural gas bill, which was being invoiced at $675,000. So we budgeted for that. Revenues at this point, we anticipate them being about $5.7 million less than what we budgeted in August, and most of that is in those 3 lines: general state aid, special education state aid, and the impact it has on LOB. So if you were to add those up, that's $5.8 million less in state aid than what we originally budgeted. And if you recall, when we presented this to you back in early winter, we went through our audit from KSDE, and our official head count is September 20th, and our weighted FTE is based on the current year weighted FTE. So we had a considerable drop in our at-risk weighting and that's what generated a lot of the $3.4 million decrease in general state aid. Then a few of the other things, facility rentals, Medicaid interest, and other, coming in slightly higher than budget. So right now, with 2 months to go, we think we'll have about $5.7 million less in revenue. Fortunately, our expenditures, we had enough savings in the multiple budgeted lines to offset that decrease. We anticipate having savings about $8 million at this time. The bulk of that is in the salary line items, where we had consistently through the whole fiscal year 200 to 250 vacancies. Those are mostly in our classified lines, custodials, paras. So that is generating about $5 million at this point. The substitute line, that's the certified substitute, we were able to use ESSER 2 monies to help us pay for some of the premium costs that we did for Monday through Friday, or Monday and Friday, sorry, and then some of the long-term subs. Transportation, we're seeing a decent size fallout in the student transportation lines of $2.1 million. If you recall, originally we had a lot of mitigation plans in place on buses where they had to have so much spacing, and we anticipated adding routes because of that. And so as the year progressed, the mitigation plans eased a little bit, or the mitigation rules or what have you eased up, so we didn't have to add those routes. Plus we were down close to 1,000 kids, so those routes never did materialize, so therefore the savings resulted. Utilities, but $1.8 million in savings. We had a pretty good winter, so that helps with natural gas and electricity. And again, the $675,000 that we budgeted for natural gas, we ended up settling that for half of that, so there's about $370,000 that fell out in that line item as well. Textbooks, instructional resource material, we originally budgeted $1 million for that, and we ended up doing $1.3 million more, so a total of $2.3 million. If you recall, a couple months ago, we purchased $3.5 million worth of elementary ELA resource materials, so the operating funds helped in that case. So again, expenditures about $8 million under budget, and at this time we think we'll surplus or take in more revenue than we are spending at about $1.8 million, leaving the ending fund balances at about 11.3%. And that concludes that report, and stand for any questions that you might have.
Do we want to keep going and ask questions at the end? Okay, thank you. Let's keep
Okay.
going.
Just keep going?
Yes, please.
All right. I gotta get my clicker in place. That's Allison. All right, we ready? All right. So tonight is the second of two budget workshops. May 9th we had one. We covered non-operating funds, and tonight we're going to go over operating funds. During the budget development process, the building needs are assessed to allocate financial resources to support the district's strategic plan. And we often refer to our funds as operational or non-operational. On May 9th, we really focused on non-operational, where we're talking about equipment and capital projects. Tonight, we're going to be talking about operating budgets that include the daily expenditures associated with running the school for salaries and benefits, transportation, and utilities. You've seen this slide many times. We have over 45 individual funds, and we group them into these 6 categories. All of them are restricted and governed and allowed by state law. Operating funds are the only one that is unrestricted, and as we go through the presentation tonight, we'll talk about operating funds, and we're going to cover federal funds. So the budget process all starts with the budget development process. It begins in November. Departments are assessing the student and building needs, and they incorporate those needs into their budget requests for the future year. And then we go on to a revenue projection, since that's going to dictate what we can afford in our budget. We tweak it as the legislative session wraps up. We got through this legislative session with no funding decreases, so that's a good thing. We'll go through our workshops, and then we'll bring back the budget for formal approval in July and August. Again, we're talking operating funds tonight. So on this particular slide, there's 10 separate funds that are listed that make up our operating funds. All our general state aid and special education state aid is required to be deposited in the general fund. The main sources of revenue that make up these funds are your state aid and local taxes, being the LOB. So on the funding part of our budget for 22-23, these are the major assumptions that we're making at this point. And these dollar amount reflects the change from the current year, 21-22, what we project that we're going to receive versus what we're going to budget for the 22-23 school year. So you can see the first two lines, if you were to, or the first three lines, if you were to net those three together, it's a $395,000. So that's all we are anticipating in additional state aid in our 22-23 budget. The base is going up $140 according to state statute, so that's a good thing. So if our enrollment would have stayed flat, we would have had an additional $4.7 million in revenue. However, our FTE is based on the higher of the two prior years, so now we are operating off our current year 21-22 FTE number, and that's a decrease of 1,050 kids, and that takes away close to $5.1 million in general state aid. And then an additional weightings of about 150, so we're estimating a little bounce back in our at-risk weighted FTE, which is based on free lunch, so that's going to be back in play for 22-23 school year, and then a little bit more in CTE. We anticipate our special education reimbursements increasing because we're adding 8 special education teachers to deal with caseload, and a 7.6 in paras, and then our transportation costs increase. So those are all reimbursements. So we anticipate about another $900,000 in special education reimbursement for those costs. LOB will go up because it's based on the base rate of $4,846, so there will be an increase there. And then we anticipate a little increase in reimbursable Medicaid for a total increase about $1.6 million in funding to work with for the 22-23 school year. So the total anticipated operating funding, we're looking at about $251 million. $185 million of that comes from general state aid and special education state aid, which is roughly about 73% of our funding. Now I'm going to switch gear to the expenditure side. The first item there is the professional growth, or column movement. That's when the certified teachers move horizontally across the schedule when they get additional education. We budget $800,000 for that. We are adding about $2.8 million in new personnel positions, which I'll show you on the next slide. Health insurance, we're budgeting $2.6 million increase. Right now we're indicating that the district contribution would stay at $792, and a little bit on the health insurance. Something that's probably never happened in my 24 years here, our actual health insurance plan overall is decreasing 1.6%. The benefits committee has met, and they are making a recommendation that they pass that savings on to the employee. So we have 6 plans, and we got all the tiers, single, plus one, spouse, and family. So each one of those premiums will go down 1.6%. So on average for an employee, that'd be about a $13 a month reduction if they're on our health plan. So that's very positive news, something, like I said, that never happened in my 24 years here. So why the $2.6 million in additional budget? So we have increases from so health plan runs on a calendar year, January to December. So we have increased costs from the plan from 2022 that we have to pick up. We have close to 160 vacancies that we need a budget for. And then in additional, we picked up about 60 to 80 additional employees on our plan from January up until this point. And so those weren't originally budgeted back in August when we approved the budget. So those are things that happen every year with our health plan, and we can put a dollar amount to it. So that's where that $2.6 million increase comes from. Student transportation will go up $808,000 because of the 3% that's in the contract with DS Bus. Supplies and services and some other lines are actually going to go down $848,000. So this is the multiple budget lines from all our different departments. We're able to reduce their budget lines close to $900,000. Small increase in our utilities, about $291,000. Instructional resource, this is the transfer we make to our instructional resource fund that we talk about at May 9th. We are still budgeting $1 million, but it's going down 1.7 because we did $2.7 million this year. Next year, we plan on doing $1 million. And one of the reasons we can do that is because at our last board meeting, we improved the instructional resource fee. So we'll continue to do our operating funds with some additional revenue that's coming in from that instructional resource fee to take care of the cycle that C&I has in place.
Russ, real quick for clarification, you did a first read on the instructional resource fee. It's on for a second read tonight.
Yeah, but I was talking about the student fee schedule that was already approved.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
you are
You have the
approving
policies that
the policy
support
on
that.
free reading. Yep. So we talked about recapture fallout. We typically do $6 million, and that's a negative, so that helps the budget. We're actually going to increase that to $7 million, so an additional $1 million that we think will fall out of our budget, and we're doing that because of just the difficulty of filling all these classified positions. So we're going to go ahead and increase that to $7 million, which increases the ability to spend beyond that. And then that last line of $2.2 million, that's the second half of the custodial salaries being moved to the capital outlay fund to provide the resources necessary to do the secondary workload, teaching 5 out of 7 periods. Okay, so we anticipate that going up, the total expenditure lines going up $1.6 million. This slide is the personnel change slide. So that first line is what I just mentioned. HR anticipates adding another 23.6 FTE to implement the second half of the secondary workload. That's a price tag of about $1.9 million. The second line there, that teacher staffing per enrollment, HR, and Dr. Schumacher and his HR team goes through each year in the wintertime with each individual building, and they go through their staffing needs based on projected enrollment. And so that we anticipate that staying relatively flat for next year. We're going to add 8 SPED teacher, as I mentioned earlier, to address caseload, and then another 8.6 in paraprofessionals in the special education area. And then as a reminder, the ESSER positions, we have 50 positions in our current budget, 21, 22, that is coming out of ESSER 2 money at this time. The ESSER 3 plan that we submitted to the state, still pending approval, will pay for these positions in 22-23 and 23-24, and then the ESSER 3 monies will be spent up. And then for the budget year 24-25, we'll have to make that decision whether we reduce these positions or absorb it into our operating fund. So we have ESSER 3 for 2 more years to cover these positions. And so those are the personnel changes that are already included in the budget. So this pie chart just breaks out our total operating expenditures by their major groups. Our total budget we're looking at is about $249.1 million. 85% of that is salary and benefits, as obviously we're very labor intensive being a public school district. And you've seen this slide before, so this is our summary of fund balance, and we're going to focus there on the yellow column. So that's the anticipated budget for 2022-23. based on revenue of $251 million, expenditures of $249.2 million. We believe our funding is going to be more than our expenditure, $1.9 million. So what we like to say is we'll surplus $1.9 million. These numbers are all prior to any compensation increase. So as you know, we're going to be negotiating starting May 25th and 26th. So all these numbers are prior to any compensation increases. Okay? I do want to indicate that it would leave our fund balances just slightly under 12%. So that brings me to Board Policy DBB, which you adopted back in 12/2020, that addresses the 10 to 15% range. And so the budget as it is now stands at 12%, and we would be within that range of 10 to 15%. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to the federal funds. This slide lists a lot of our federal awards. We have only been made aware of one preliminary allocation amount, and that's in Title 6B, which supports our SPED program, and we anticipate that going up $271,000. So all these amounts are our current year award amounts because we have not heard our allocations for next year at this time. Once we do hear it, obviously it'll get incorporated into the budget that we bring back to you in August. So some of our three large ones, there's Title I is based on low income, and that supports our Title I schools. Title 6B directly supports our special ed program. And then the other there is ESSER 3, which is $11.8 million. And if you recall it, we're going to get $11.8 million for 22-23, and then another $11.8 million for 23-24. Okay. The ESSER 3 funds allocation. Again, this has been submitted to the state. We're still waiting approval from the state. We have not heard back yet on that. Once we do have that approval, it does include a line item for $2 million for the retention payment. We are recommending a $700 retention payment from ESSER $3. Last year we did $600, and we would follow the same criteria. So once we hear back from the state on the status of our ESSER 3 application, we'll bring that back, that recommendation as an action item back to the Board of Education in June for your approval. So that's the ESSER $3. We showed you this slide May 9th, but it's worth repeating because there's good news that we anticipate our mill levy going down about 2.35%. So the two levies here that impacts operating fund is obviously the general fund, which is 20 mills, and that's state statute driven, so every school district has to do 20 mills. And our other one is the local option budget, and we go through the budget process and that gets set. So again, we project that mill levy going down 2.35%. And then the budget timeline, the yellow highlight is what we're doing tonight. The next thing we will be doing is the revenue neutral rate, and we'll bring that back to you at the June 27th board meeting. And that concludes my report. I want to thank Allison, who puts all this material together, and she does a very good job with it. So thank you to Allison, and we'll stand for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. I believe, I'm sorry, I did not go back and double check. I'm just going to start with you, Ms. Hembry. I feel like, can I start with you? I feel like you're up
Sure.
next. I apologize for not giving you a heads up.
My question is mostly a Dr. Hubbard question. I asked it last time too, is just when we think about our operating budget in particular, what are the things that sort of crossed your desk or are the cabinet's desk that we wish we had funding for and do not?
I think, well, there's a handful of things, but I would start with, I believe our classified salary schedule is really low, especially compared to our peers. And it's an area where we're really having a hard time filling and retaining positions. So I would like to see us be able to add dollars to the classified salary schedule. And we talked about it at a meeting, I don't know, probably 6 months ago. And it's a really big number. Even to add like $2 to all classified groups would be I don't know, I roughly remember $4 million to be somewhere in that, but I mean, just a dollar increment is a big lift because we have so many classified salaries employees, but that's a big one. Interventionist, I think really at all three levels, but particularly at our elementary levels where kids are really just learning to read and learning basic concepts, especially in buildings that aren't titled. And I mean, they just don't have a lot of hands on deck, and so I think interventionists are really important. I think all of the ESSER positions, are very valued in regards to social workers, instructional coaches, additional math teachers, additional counselors. Those positions are all very valued. So right now we're very fortunate that they're covered, just not in the operating funds, but eventually that'll be a point of conversation. I would also say that admin interns for our really large elementary schools, as well as assistant principal in both Indian Woods and Indian Hills, would be the top things that come to the list.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Boyd-Narena.
Yes, just to even add to what our Superintendent Hubbard just mentioned is that new to me, but a critical focal point for me as a new school board member is the state of the ESSER funds and keeping that in the forefront, not only on our minds, but for the public and for the external stakeholders to make sure that that is on the forefront of your minds as well, where we'll have to be as innovative as all get out to still figure out the best plan and best way to move forward to still keep those critical positions or determine what is the next best step for the board and from listening to stakeholders to determine what's the next best step. So that's first and foremost on my mind as we move forward with the ESSER funds.
All right. Thank you. All right, Ms. Borgman.
I was happy to hear, well, first of all, thank you. We appreciate it as always. I was happy to hear about the decrease in health insurance and why, do we know why that there was a decrease this year? Just got lucky?
We talked with CBIZ, they laid out multiple things. So we got the health clinic in the back that's helping on that. One of the other things is in the prior year, they built in kind of a COVID factor. So they anticipated coming out of the pandemic that more folks would go to the doctor and we'd have additional claims. That really didn't materialize like they thought. So they were able to keep those premiums lower this year because we didn't see those claims in the current year that we're in. So they always look at a rolling 12 months, and our rolling 12 months is doing very well right now.
Okay. It sounds like the health clinic continues to, just be a huge benefit for our district in so many ways. And thank you. Glad to hear that we're not passing along any additional costs to employees.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ousley.
So I'll just follow up to Jamie's question then. So do we have concerns that it could be a fluke and that next year it could go back up and that then folks will have those expenses back in their paycheck and that'll feel like a bump up, but it'll actually be returning to status quo? So like this year is kind of per paycheck, per person, it's a small bonus,
Yeah.
but like to anticipate that might not remain the same.
Yeah, we
Just so
did
people
have that
notice.
concern. We had those same discussion with CBIZ and Dr. Schumacher and I when we met with them. They pointed that out, that it could be a fluke and it could rebound. If it did, it would, that $13 savings could, work the other way.
So it's only $13, but we just don't get attached to it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the way in which you and Allison and all manage the 41 funds and create this workshop information that becomes a way to help us better understand how all these dollars are being used. It's an incredible, not only incredibly informative and laid out in such detail, but it's really helpful too to be able to track over the years how our dollars are ebbing and flowing and aligning with our strategic plan. So I just had to put that plug in there. So thank you very much for that. I have two quick questions. One, I just on the special education teacher, the reduction of caseload, those dollars that have kind of been managed as part of this whole 3-year plan of reducing caseloads. And this might be more of a Dr. Hubbard question. We're trying to get it so the caseload is within kind of topping at 15 at most. Is that kind of reducing? But we have, at present and in the past years, we have had some teachers who've had more than 15 students with IEPs to manage on their caseload. Is that kind of our goal, of getting it so it doesn't top 15 students?
Dr. Schumacher's shaking his head yes, 15, but I would also say that also varies on the intensity of the students being served.
Right, so the students with more minutes on their IEP would, yeah, right. But there are some teachers who are carrying larger caseloads and smaller caseloads as a function of how many minutes each student has. But we do have staff carrying more. That's just, yeah.
And we have staff
Carrying 4 or 1.
Yes.
Yes, there's a range. Okay, thank you. And then my other question, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time tracking my thoughts here. I'll come back to it. Ms. Goodburn.
Thank you for this presentation. I'm kind of stuck on the current budget assumptions funding page. And then while I'm very appreciative of the $140 per student, I'm really bummed out about the enrollment decrease of 1,049 FTE. Russ, I don't remember, were we held harmless this year in this budget, or was it just because we could go 2 years previous and we had, is that why we're kind of feeling it in this budget?
Yeah, so for 21, 22, it was the higher of the 2 prior years, so we were working off 19, 20.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this is
so our
our
19
first year of really feeling the COVID,
Yeah.
the COVID decrease in our student population.
That's right. So we decreased enrollment 2021 and then rebounded just maybe about 300 kids in 21, 22.
So we're using the 21, 22 numbers.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
I might add that we've been able, in running federal reports, so I'm going to speak specifically to Title I, when we run those reports, we've been able to use the 1920 enrollment, and they allowed us to do that even an additional year. But we don't know what our title allocation is yet for 22, 23, so we're a little worried about a decrease there. But I think even more importantly, the following year, because you do it a year behind, I really worry about the 23, 24 in regards to federal funds. As a result of that, because it does enrollment behind, more behind than the 2-year average.
Michelle, can I make sure I understood that right? Sorry, Sarah, I know it's your question time, but you're saying we're feeling the COVID enrollment decline from the state in terms of this budget, but we'll feel it a year from now on the federal revenue.
We don't know the federal yet. It could even be as early now, but they allowed us to go back and use 1920 to run our reports. So we've been in really good shape so far. But when we have, like, for example, we'll fill out, federal funds run weirdly, but October is when that next report will be due. It's called the Local Consolidated Plan, the LCP. That'll be due in October, and we will have to use 21, 22 numbers to fill out for the following. And so I worry about that.
Ms. Goodburn, did you have additional questions?
I don't, but thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
Okay. And if, along that vein, can I jump back in the whole point of the enrollment? So that, in some ways, because we use the 3-year, we have a 3-year or 2-year look back on enrollment, that allows us as a district to at least do some planning and anticipation in how much we might need to consider. So you actually have helped us manage that, knowing that that might be coming to a certain extent. Is that
Yeah, we would.
accurate?
Allison does those enrollment numbers, but yeah, we would have known that last fall when the numbers came in.
So you're helping us
September
kind of manage that change with that window of time.
So what we're really hoping for is a good bounce back for September 20 of 2022.
I think Shawnee Mission is the place to be, so
Yep.
I don't know why anybody else wouldn't think that. All right, Mr. Stratton.
Thank you. I'll keep going with that same slide. I've got one about funding and one about expenditures. As we talked about the managing of these changes, the other one that, if you could explain to me one more time, Our surrounding districts have also run into some pretty significant changes that aren't on this slide, are they? Is there one more that we don't experience but other districts do that have caused them to have some pretty serious budget reduction conversations?
Yeah, I think you're referring to Olathe
Right.
and Blue Valley. They both have additional weighting called extraordinary growth, and that allows them to tax locally because they're adding so many kids every school year. They qualify for additional funding. Well, they no longer qualify because they're not adding kids each year to meet that criteria, so they're getting weaned off of that additional revenue, and so that's why they're doing those, have to do those budget reductions.
And Russ, they would also be losing new facility weighting, significant amount of new facility weighting,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep, yes.
So kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, and then their
On the
enrollment.
formula.
And then their enrollment is down as well,
Okay.
so triple whammy.
Wow. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. And then over on the expenditures, which is 2 slides, there you go. Thank you. As you look at these, you call them budget assumptions, which are the ones that you think about as having the most variable between what the number is and what, and what I think about is utilities, you know, we kind of plug a number there. We had that really unique situation a year ago where gas prices went up and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm also thinking about when you mentioned the 3% increase for student transportation, I was wondering, well, gosh, that sounds great because I know fuel costs have probably really put a dent in the bill for our contractors' ability to deliver the services.
Right.
Which one of these do you look at and go, well, there's a lot of variable in these?
Well, student transportation is always variable because we don't know till the kids show up and which ones are going to ride the bus in the fall. And then whatever, you know, they'll DS bus will route it as efficiently as possible. So we'll see at that point. Utilities, a bad winter could really increase the natural gas. And this winter, the natural gas all really peaked in March. That was unfortunate, but fortunate that we were already through our major 2 months, January and February, where we consumed our natural gas. So we don't consume as much natural gas in March, so we didn't really have to feel that big brunt of it. But natural gas prices, utilities has surprisingly, electricity has surprisingly done very well for us the last couple of years. So, and then the other one, probably the biggest one is the health insurance. We have to budget for all those vacancies. So if those vacancies, if they stay vacant, then you'll have savings in your health insurance line. And then during the open enrollment, we don't know how many will jump on the health plan at open enrollment. So we don't have that budgeted at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I do recall my other question, then I'll see if anybody else has any follow-up questions. Around the ESSER 3 funds, so that application is waiting approval by the State Board of Education, and the note, you know, the retention pay piece, that part, the approval of that retention pay, that was really a function of feedback from I shouldn't say primarily a function, but we had strong community feedback for continuing or doing another year of that.
That is correct.
Retention
It
pay.
came up as one of the top priorities in our ESSER stakeholder thought exchange.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, any other questions about the operating budget portion of our budget workshop? Yes, Ms. Borgman.
With regards to SPED funding, I know SMSD is not fully funded. What's the gap there?
We are at, so the last time I did, so I based it on the actual calculation of fiscal year 21, we were at 68%, and the state was at 73%, and state law says 92%.
So, Ms. Ousley?
And we would need about $8 million more
million.
in SPED,
Yeah.
state aid, to get to 92%.
$8 million would go a really long way. Yeah.
It's $40 million for all of Johnson County.
Okay, any other questions? Yep, okay, thank you. All right. Okay, I believe that is it on our questions. Thank you so much for that
Thank you.
presentation and workshop information. So next up is the middle school PLC time presentation 3.2. Dr. Hubbard.
Yeah, so as part of our strategic plan, specifically around strategy 3, we have an area to increase time for professional learning communities at both elementary, middle, and high school. As you all know, several years ago, we started a late start with our high school. High school kids can still attend, and buses run as normal, and we supervise accordingly. And today, strategy 3.2.2 committee is at least one member I see. Will be joining us to just talk about what that committee's work has looked like. And it's really been ongoing for, I'd say, at least a year now. Am I correct?
Yep.
And they've done a lot of work and a lot of research, and they have a plan to present to us.
Good evening, everyone. And Dr. Hubbard, I'm a member of the committee too, so there's two of us. Yeah, there's two of us. So thank you for your time. So Mr. Dirks and I, who's a teacher at Indian Woods and a member of the committee, have what we think is a really exciting presentation for you, and probably pretty quick too, so hopefully that's okay as well. As Dr. Hubbard mentioned, this has been a part of the Strategic Action Committee 322. Really that work started probably over 2 years ago, but the focus on PLCs really took place about 1.5 years ago or a year ago. It clearly is tied to our mission and our strategic plan. We always like to put these slides up so that, again, our community and you all are aware of that work. So, PLCs, I'm going to talk a little bit about them here in a second. But they do develop and utilize that personal resilience while mastering essential competencies that lead to college and career readiness. So we really feel it very strongly in that. So, professional learning communities. We use this terminology or PLCs pretty frequently in the school district. And just to make sure that we're all on the same page, we thought it'd be good just to kind of share with you what PLCs are. And I'm guessing Mr. Stubblefield and his team might be a little shocked that I'm trying to sum up PLCs in one slide. It was kind of an ambitious task, but in an effort to be quick, I am going to try to do that. So PLCs originated a long time ago with the work of Rick DeFore, and that's that bottom quote from him. The work really is essential to schools, and so one of his quotes, and we are bringing in Solution Tree to help us with this work this summer, it says that educators within the organization embrace high levels of learning for all students as both the reason the organization exists and the fundamental responsibility for those who work within it. So it is that essential work. At the top of that slide are the 4 essential questions. And if you're not familiar with PLCs, this is really the heart of the work. And so anytime a professional learning community gets together, they address those 4 pieces. So what do we want kids to know? 2, how will we know if they've learned it? How will we know if they've done it? 3, what's the teacher, what's the PLC going to do if the kid doesn't or doesn't respond to that? And 4, and equally as important, what do we do to extend that learning if the student already has that knowledge? So again, that's PLCs in a nutshell. How'd I do, Mr. Stubblefield?
You had the 4 questions on there.
So that's
Solution
Just the heart of education right there.
Solution Tree would be proud of you.
Very good. All right, so PLCs in the strategic plan. Again, as Dr. Hubbard mentioned, this has been work that the district has been committed to for quite a long time. So we've been sending teachers, administrators to PLC conferences for a number of years, and Dr. Hubbard's previous work as an assistant superintendent, she led that commitment. Dr. Gilhouse and I actually, about 6 years ago, went to the board and through negotiations and helped put together that late start at the high school level. And so that was that guarded PLC time for those high schools, and that's been taking place very successfully at our high schools for a number of years. Since then, the other levels, elementary and middle schools, were asked to be creative in finding that PLC time. And they've done a great job in doing that. But again, there wasn't that guarded time that the high schools had. And so that's where Strategic Plan 322 came into place. And there was a commitment from the strategic plan to find that guarded time for our other 2 levels. So again, as Dr. Hubbard alluded to, the subcommittee was formed. And in the IBB process, we continued to talk about it. And the district actually noticed this year PLC time for this year's negotiations. And so that this work has continued in that fact as well. Why PLCs? Simply put, they work. They really do work, okay? They're the single biggest factor that will propel us forward in increasing student achievement. This district believes that. When teachers, educators come together and have collegial conversations about students and the performance, that's really when we can push that student performance forward. So it's that focus on student success, learning and improvement, that teacher collaboration time, building and sharing ideas, and research, and really points to the fact that it does truly work, but you need that weekly PLC time for an extended amount of time to get it to work effectively. And then just as a reminder, the district has committed to this summer, bringing in Solution Tree to train all of our teachers who are willing to come this June, and we have a great turnout to do that. Okay, so quick lead in, and now Mr. Dirks is going to talk a little bit about the actual plan.
So at the middle school level, we wanted to make sure that we did not burden any families. So we are trying to stick, or we are recommending to stick with the same high school schedule, with being Thursdays being the late start. What that would look like for us would be every day we start out with a mascot hour at 8:45, and it's usually about 29, 30 minutes. So we would not be having a mascot hour on Thursdays, and the first hour class would begin at 9:18, allowing teachers to PLC from 8:05 to at least 9:05. The bus schedules would continue to run like normal, so if you're a student who's riding the bus, would still pick up at normal time. Students would still be allowed to enter the building at the normal time. Breakfast can continue to be served. If you have students who are riding as a car rider or a walker, they can choose to come in at the normal regular time, or they can choose to come later because first class would not start until 9:18. Supervision, this is one of the cons that we have, which will be on the next slide. Because of supervision, we would have to rotate by departments, ELA, math, social studies, science, electives, in order to provide that supervision for students. We would split the students up around the buildings, utilizing any open spaces we have, NPR, cafeteria, gyms. My building's got a collaborative area that's just been constructed, so we've got that additional area as well. We could provide work assistance, just general supervision activities, or we can work on Zello or U Science or any individual focuses that we need or that students need. Pros, students would give an option of arrival time, again, so we don't have to burden any families. Personal schedules, bus schedules would not have to be changed. Funding is available just because it's going to be able to be covered by current staff, certified and classified. Everything's within our current contract time, 8:05 to 4:05. Normal bell schedule, we would just not be having the mascot hour at 9:18, or no mascot hour those days. First hour would start at 9:18. The con would just be the supervision, because those content teams would not be able to meet every week, but for just having one of those weeks to provide that supervision. And that's all I've got.
All right. Do we have time for some questions? Okay, Ms. Borgman, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
I mean, I don't think I have any questions. It was a great presentation, and sounds like it's something that we've needed to do for a long time to benefit kids. And they're, again, to provide that individualized learning plan for each and every student. And so it sounds like a win-win. So thank you so much.
Ms. Owsley?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
All right. I was just curious if the option to use the virtual for the electives to split up and then Zoom in was that a nice silver lining of COVID and the use of WebEx and whatnot? Love that. Thank you. I don't have any questions. Other questions? Ms. Borgman?
Or Goodburn.
Goodburn.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the presentation. Sounds like a great deal. So thank you. No questions.
Mr. Stratton?
You mentioned the PLC Institute coming up, and you skipped right over that. I want you to tell us a little more about that, meaning what's the capacity? What are we looking at for participation?
That's more of a your question.
I might lean on Dr. Hubbard and Mr. Stubblefield, but we do have a great turnout.
So I think we have a capacity of 2,000. And do you have a current enrollment?
I don't have the exact number.
Joe's over here saying 1508. He just heard it today.
Ooh, hot off the
1508 it
press.
is.
So excited.
I just didn't
I
want that
thought
to
it
get
was a little
glossed over
more.
because I just have so much fun picturing 1,500 of our educators all together for this event. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a testament to our staff who are willing to come in during their summer and get this training, so it's fantastic.
And then
Yeah.
my sort of tongue-in-cheek question is, have we discovered that on Thursdays, the quality of the homework that's being done is increased because these students are coming early and they have that 1 hour to catch up on their homework?
That might be a reach, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
I would say that as a mom of 3 kids who are secondary, I would say the quality of their sleep has improved more than anything, maybe than their homework.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Hembry.
Thank you. So I have 3 elementary kids. So my question is, what typically happens during mascot hour? I just want to confirm, like, we're not losing any instructional time for students by making this change.
So at Indian Woods, we have a setup of, every day kind of has some sort of an activity. Sometimes those activities are just, study hall, making sure their homework is getting completed, checking in with students, grade checks, Zello, use science. We allow students to travel to other classroom or to a teacher that they, have for a core subject that may not be me, to get that additional help as well.
Just for clarification, we are losing instructional minutes as it pertains to the school calendar.
That was good to know. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Boyd-Norena.
Yes, a lot of the work that I do is remote or virtual, so I applaud the efforts of seeing a little note of that as part of the plan. Was that spurred by teachers or just innovative thinking, or where did that
I
come
think
from?
with the electives classes, that's going to help them out more to be able to communicate with other buildings. We do have situations in the math department where we are communicating with other buildings, especially like the geometry classes. Our geometry teachers communicate across the district with WebEx.
Great. Good to hear.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you so much. Thank you for all the work. Really appreciate it.
Joan, thanks for joining us.
Happy summer.
Okay. All right, this brings us to consent items. Unless anyone has moves to remove an item, I will seek a motion to approve consent from 4.1 to 6.2.
Ms. Sinclair, I'd like to remove items 5.32, 5.33, and 5.34 from the consent agenda. Those are the 3 contracts related to SROs.
I'll second.
Okay, I didn't ask for a second, but hang on.
Sorry.
But thanks.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, which ones?
5.32, 0.33, and 0.34.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's begin with so I need a motion to approve consent items. Let's try this again, 4.1 to 5.31, and then skipping down to 5.35. Do I have a motion?
Through 6.02.
Sorry, thank you, through 6.02.
So moved. Owsley?
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Second, Goodburn.
Thank you, Goodburn. All right, Ms. Goodburn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, let's take each of the, I'd like to make a motion to approve the SRO contracts 5.32, 33, 5.34. So all 3 in one motion. Do I have approval? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Owsley?
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Goodburn.
All right. All in favor?
Whoa. She wants to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion. I'm sorry. I need to
Thank
put
you.
my glasses back on.
Yeah. I just wanted
I
to.
just throw, maybe heads up would be good.
What?
Keep going.
Oh, so I just had a question about at the April 11th board workshop meeting, we received an evaluation of all of our student safety programs combined. And for me, one of the biggest takeaways was that we needed and wanted to commit to like a more robust and consistent data collection approach. I think our district is a little unique compared to some in that we do have contracts with so many local law enforcement agencies just because of the way the boundaries of our district work. And in my mind, these MOUs are one of our best opportunities to ramp up our data collection efforts. So I wanted to just explore what changes we have made on our MOUs in light of that commitment to improve data collection.
So I just want to clarify that we want a more consistent data collection because all of the cities don't report the same, which makes it difficult to aggregate the data. So we will be looking for a more consistent. It's already in the MOU that they will provide us the data, so we are planning a summer session with the 4 entities as well as Dr. Gilhouse, Chief Schmidt, and then I've asked that Dr. Grumman be part of that conversation, so, because he's the one that compiles all the data for us, so how the data comes in is easier for us to spit it back out, and so Dr. Grumman will be part of that discussion, and they will be meeting with the cities this summer to talk about what that consistent data collection piece looks like. Dr. Gilhouse, you want to add anything to that?
That is correct. And over the whole district, within our SRO programs, we deal with 4 municipalities: Prairie Village, Overland Park, Shawnee, and Lenexa. So those are the groups that we'll be meeting with this summer to get more consistency in that data.
So is there any desire to have consistency between what they're collecting and what our district resource officers are collecting? Because it struck me from that prior evaluation that we had a lot more detailed data for our district resource officers.
It gets a little bit tricky because we have discipline that we report to the state that we are mandated to do, and it goes in a different way when it comes to reporting felonies or arrests or misdemeanors or transporting. We have to be careful. We do ethnicity and gender, but we have to be careful with how detailed we get to keep confidentiality.
Any further questions?
No, I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So we have a first and second. So now all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One. Okay. Motion passes 6-1. Okay. All right, that brings us to action item 7.1. So this is approval to contract for new and replacement walk-in coolers and freezers for Broken Arrow, Rising Star, Broadmoor Technical Center. Dr. Hubbard, do you want to add anything there?
This is just a replacement cycle, pretty standard for our schools.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved, Owsley.
All right, second?
Second.
Or
Go for it, Ms.
You were
Goodburn.
tied.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, we have 3 policies that are on second read. The first is 7.2, approval of revised board policy AD, district attendance areas. Are there?
So moved, Owsley.
second, Goodburn.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Our next policy for second read is approval of revised board policy IEA, virtual school programs. Dr. Hubbard, any comments on that?
We're both on 7.03 and 7.04. I received no feedback on the second read, and both of them changed the semantics of textbook fees, which we have historically used, to instructional resource fees. And then 7.04 also adds the change in fees of how we waive for students on free lunch at 100% and reduced at 50%.
Okay. Thank you. So could I seek a motion for policy IEA?
So move, Borgman.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Hembry.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So that leaves us approval of revised board policy JS, student fees, fines, and charges.
Move approval, Goodburn.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Owsley.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right. That leaves us with board comments, and I'll start with Ms. Owsley.
Oh, okay. Well, graduation was this week, and it is really this one week where you get to see all of these bright, shining faces and everything that they've worked for the last 18 years come together, and to get to listen to the parents so excited in the stands and knowing the bright futures that they have in front of them. Like, this is the week to be a board member. Like, this is the week to be a board member. So all of those kids, we were shaking their hands and we're saying congratulations, congratulations. And Mr. Stratton and I we had a joke, we were like, man, we should be telling them to register to vote instead of congratulations. But you can't get all that out in the 1 second you have with them while you're shaking their hands. So to all of our new graduates, now is your time to register to vote. There are elections coming up this fall, and the deadline to register for the August 2nd election, I believe, is around July 4th. So you can just go to the Secretary of State's website and fill out the electronic registration information and get that taken care of, and then you can vote by mail if you're on vacation or having a fun and exciting life. But so that is the thing that I couldn't get out while you were walking across the stage, that now that you've graduated, you have civic responsibilities, and those include registering to vote. So thank you.
I'd just like to add my congratulations to all the graduates, the staff that helped them get there, and their families, and congratulations to all our spring athletes as well. And Ms. Goodburn, it's the G's and the B's, I think.
Congrats to all the graduates, too. It's a fun week for everyone, I know, and really is a bucket filler for all of us, too. But I know that there's a lot of students that aren't done competing. We have state competitors for state track, I believe, this coming weekend, and softball. I know Shawnee Mission North is made it to state, and their game is on Thursday, sometime in the afternoon on Thursday, so I will be wearing my bison wear there. So.
I would add, we have a state contender in everything in spring sports with the exception of soccer, and we had 3 soccer teams leading in the regional finals. We just didn't make it out of the regional finals, but that's a really successful spring for us.
Well, I believe the state track meet is usually on TV, which is really a fun thing to watch if you're a track person like me. So I believe it's on TV this weekend too. So I know North alone has like 27 competitors, I think.
We have a lot of track and field.
Yeah, so it's exciting. So anyway, yeah.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Stratton.
To stay with the theme of the spring athletic events, it was pretty cool to see the state swim meet at our facility here. That looked like quite an event, and it was a really nice opportunity to showcase one of the assets in our school district. I had friends from other districts that were in the area, and they were blown away with how nice it was for the state meet this past weekend. Secondly, I want to extend a thank you to all the administrative team that are around the tables here. The school year's over, and thank you. I know that your work never ends, but thank you in recognizing that this was a very successful school year again, all kinds of crazy twists and turns, but just on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for all the work that you put into this, the time, the energy, the emotional energy that goes into serving our district, so thank you.
Great. Ms. Hembry.
Congrats to all the graduates. I'd echo that. I also wanted to give a thanks to the team, Tammy McCoy and others who helped plan the 5K Family Fun Run, which I did not run in, but I crossed the finish line in a very slow walk. And it was really fun. I just felt like it was such a great chance for all of our associates and employees and educators to be together with their families. And there were chair massages, and there was face painting, and there were pancakes galore, and it felt like a really great way to end the year. So thank you for organizing that.
Ms. Boyd-Norona.
Yes, it was my first slate of graduations. It was humbling, emotional, but I must say that it kind of solidified, more so if not, the impact of our role, all of our roles here, both on the stage with the students and just in what we do even on a daily basis. So I wanted to send a congrats to the graduates and those that supported them. It may not have been their mother, father, or what have you, but any person that supported them to get them across the finish line, I want to say congrats to them as well.
And I would just like to add that there's going to be some upgrade in some pictures because Ms. Boyd-Norona made sure all their cords were wrapped around and everything was all set, so they had a good solid picture before they left the stage. It was great. It was great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. The next.
Don't forget Ms. Portman.
There we go.
No, just ditto. And also, I had my oldest child graduate from Shawnee Mission Northwest, and just was such an awesome event. And just to see the pride on her face and the smile and the joy, and, you know, see her celebrating with her friends. And as someone had mentioned, just the teachers who all helped her get there is just such an awesome feeling as a parent. And, you know, one of the teachers that my daughter had really changed the trajectory of her life by mentioning the Rotary Youth Exchange program. And so teachers never underestimate, you know, the amazing power and influence that you have in the life of a child, because you certainly touched my daughter significantly and really impacted her life in amazing ways. So thank you to all of the educators, whether you wear an administrative hat or a teaching hat. You're all teachers at heart, I believe. And so thank you so much, and have an awesome summer.
Great. Thank you. The next workshop meeting of the Board of Education will be held June 13th, 2022, and this concludes our meeting. Thank you, everybody.